But he may not have the object of revealing that or lecturing to anybody or even trying to put forward his view as a total one or a good one.
Let's avoid the word lecture for a moment because it suggests a propagandist work, and I don't think anybody is really talking about that.
Well, they have been.
This stock does include a stock of ideas about how worlds ought to be. No?
No.
The hereditary principle is very strong.
Yes, yes, yes.
Though not ubiquitous. The Hobbits don't have one,
No,
do they?
quite so.
But do you yourself look back on a world in which the hereditary principle is strong with affection?
I do, yes.
Good morning, my lovelies. Hello, hello. Welcome to a morning stream. I don't ever do these. I have to apologize. I feel like crap. I look like crap, but I'm here to talk about one of the most expansive, complete, and undeniably great stories ever told, The Lord of the Rings. And I'm joined by my brother. Hello,
Hello,
Ralph.
brother.
How's it going?
Oh, doing well, doing well. That was a sweet little intro.
Yeah, isn't that great? I was up at like 1 o'clock in the morning working on that.
Yeah, did you make that? That's great.
Yeah. We needed an intro for the brothers discuss, but
Yeah, that's great.
we're here to talk about Lord of the Rings. I had to bring you in because obviously you're our family's foremost Tolkien historian, and as you can see in the background, you're starting to look like your brother. We're getting a wall going. I mean, what's going on back there?
Yeah, so that's my I had this idea that it would be fun to when we moved back to the US and I had like a job and I started making money. It would be fun to sort of start a shelf. We got this wonderful old house with a lot of shelf space, and I thought it'd be really fun to sort of, as you're going along, I used to read Lord of the Rings about once a year. I would just like once a year give it what a noob question. Oh man. So
I mean, did you do like Hobbit and then Lord of the Rings, or
no.
Okay.
And I'm just playing. It's not a noob question. That's so Tolkien saw it as one book. Tolkien was like, no, this is one book. It's one story. But he published it. He wanted to publish it right after the war. Like so post-war publishing costs were like insane. And they were like, yeah, that's great that you want to do that. That's really cool. No one's gonna buy it. it's gonna be so expensive to do that no one's gonna buy it. And he's like, okay, fine. So they ended up breaking it up into those three books, and which is another fun story, actually. But yeah. So he had a little bit of a battle with the name for all three of them. So Fellowship of the Ring, he was good with. He liked that. That was like, yeah, this is what it is. Two Towers is fun because there's sort of, he never really actually says which two towers. It's sort of left up in the air.
Saurons and Saurumans, those are the two towers.
Yeah, I think that's what I took when I read the books. I think those are the ones that I took. The movies, I think, what did they ended up doing?
They explicitly say it in Two Towers. Saruman says it.
The union of the two towers. Yeah. Orthanc and Barad-dûr. So they went with that, and then he was they had a big fight. They had a big knockdown, drag out fight over Return of the King.
Really?
He was
I feel like that it's so like that makes so much sense.
Yeah, well, that's why. So think of it's whatever 1950 something, and no one has read the book yet. No one knows. Everyone's read Fellowship. Everyone's read Two Towers. No one knows what happens. Like he was like, why would you name it that? You're giving away the. It's like you're giving away the ending.
Yeah.
He wanted to call it the War of the Ring, which I
like that
personally kind of like that better. I love Return of the King. Return of the King's cool, but I think the War of the Ring would have been cool because it doesn't give anything away.
Yeah.
Technically, you could say the Return of the King doesn't necessarily give anything away either, but
I think it does in a way.
I think that's it. Anyway, long story longer. Yeah, I thought it would be fun as I read through it to have a shelf out of this little museum, this little Weta. It's a Weta shelf. It's mostly from sculptures and stuff that Weta makes. Weta is the company that did all the sculptures and visual effects for the film, and
Pricey.
Pricey, especially now because a lot of them are 20-something years old.
Yeah.
So they're getting to that place, and yeah, this would be cool. Like wherever I was in the book, it'd be fun to have like a shelf that had that's a scene or a moment or a landscape from wherever you are in the book. So I just took down. I had a great one. Oh, it would have been really good for this. I just finished Moria. I had a really great Moria shelf. I had a really big Moria. They made a big sculpture of Moria. With the broken bridge and the staircase and all that stuff. And I had a big background, kind of like that. Like a big background, great for pictures. It had some little. I talked with you about it. Wired some micro LEDs, orangish red LEDs into the bottom of it, so it glowed. Beautiful pictures. I got some beautiful pictures out of that. It was really, yeah. So anyway, blah blah blah. Long story longer. That's my little Weta shelf. So as you can see now, I'm just getting into sort of Two Towers territory, getting into Rohan. Yeah. So that's where we are. It's a fun thing. It's just a fun thing as you keep reading it. You get to change up part of your house's decoration.
Yeah. I hear you. Let's say what's up to the chat really quick. Good morning. I see a bunch of my members here. It looks like Darth Arlena became a new member. I guess you're an old member, remade, reforged. Good to have you back. We got a $2 super chat from Daimyo of the Hangar Bay.
Such a good name.
I can't get over that, man. Do you know what that's referencing?
No.
So Book of Boba Fett, they called him a daimyo. It still drives me nuts to this day. They called Boba Fett a daimyo. I'm like, why are we
That's weird. Isn't it like super
Japanese
out of
warlord?
Yeah, isn't that like super out of universe? That's like that's like a very specific historical reference to like 15th century Japan.
Look, if you don't like it, we'll just call you the R word, okay?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But we do a little thing here anytime we get some super chats or we get a member or anything like that. We got to do a little dance. So get ready to shake your little booty. We're gonna do a little bit of dance. This is what I do, man. This is what I do. But he has a question. Which wing is that? Is this X, Y, or Z? What do you prefer?
I guess I'm Y.
Y wing? Okay. Y ring.
Yeah.
I like that.
The middle one.
So the reason I wanted to bring you on, we're about a month behind the ball on this, but I am a Star Wars channel. We're a month behind the ball on this. We got some good news about Lord of the Rings, and I went back this last week and I rewatched all of the Lord of the Rings movies, but I watched for the first time all the extended editions. Oh. And it's like, how do you go back now? What? I can't go back.
You
watch it on TNT, you're like, this is trash now.
Yeah. Once you get used to those extra scenes, and you see it without the scene, you're like, but what about? But no. But what? But it doesn't make any sense if you don't. Where's this?
Yeah. So
it's hard. It's hard.
They were absolutely incredible. And then we get the news that David, what's his name? David Zaslav, during the WB earnings call, says, we're so fortunate to have this beautiful IP. And by the way, we're going to make a shitload of movies now. Again, we're doing it again. And everybody's like, I should be excited. I'm excited, right? Are we excited about this? But
how do I feel? It took me some time to figure out how I even feel.
Yeah, the wound is still very fresh, obviously, from the Rings of Power. But what the really important thing to know, and a lot of people were confused too. They're like, I thought Amazon had already bought the rights to this. How is WD doing it? But the bottom line is that Amazon didn't really buy the rights to Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. They basically got some footnotes, some shit that was written on a napkin, and they're like, we're going to tell a story that Tolkien didn't tell. And
the rights are super complicated. There's like, there's rights for The Hobbit, there's rights for The Lord of the Rings, but then there's rights for like there's rights for TV Lord of the Rings, and there's rights for TV Hobbit, and then there's rights for movie Lord of the Rings and movie Hobbit. It's this a super rat's nest, and that's how we ended up with these two totally different entities.
Yeah.
With rights to the same thing. Yeah. That was wild. That was like
I heard that out of the blue.
Yeah, I heard that piece of news come out and was just like so conflicted. It's like you want to be excited as a fan, like you want to be excited. Of course you want to be excited when someone else is, someone's gonna put to screen one of your favorite things. But also it's current year,
it's 2023, baby.
It's current year, and you're like, do you have to though? What if we gave it what if we just so do it. I support this, but what if we just wait 10 years, and then do it then? Yeah, and it's just such a terrible time for creativity. So it's this weird dichotomy. It's awesome time for nerddoms and fandoms. Awesome time. The internet is exploding with this kind of stuff. It's such a good time to be a nerd or a fan of something. The big communities are blowing up, and that's really cool. But it's but then on the other side, it's a terrible time for creativity, because you have all these, you have all these boxes that have to be checked, and it ends up not feeling like art. It ends up feeling like a corporate checklist, and that's not what good art ever is.
Yeah, exactly. And so, kind of to your point, people are a little conflicted, but there's also been a lot of misinformation being spread about it. I can't believe I just fucking said that. There's been a lot of misinformation spread about it in terms of it being a reboot of Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And that's apparently that's not going to be the direction, which is good. And though it's not completely confirmed, basically PJ has been I think he's been elected to basically handle this, but he put out and said, nobody's been picked as of yet, but they've kind of kept me in the loop every step of the way. So I would love to see PJ handle it. Obviously, there are some people that are still mad about The Hobbit.
Yep.
But I need to know a little more, because I'm sure what exactly was his involvement there, because from what I've understood, it was fairly limited when it came to The Hobbit, or late, I should say.
Yeah, limit is not the right word, but it was definitely late. It's hard because if you're a general public member, just a general audience member, and you don't call them
normies.
If you're you're a normie, right? If you're a muggle, if you're a normie, you're like, oh, Peter Jackson is doing Hobbit movies. Well, Peter Jackson did, basically one of the greatest film trilogies of all time. So this will be epic. You see the Hobbit trilogy and you're like, was that the same director?
What the
fuck? So what happened there? So and you're like, oh wow, he's actually not a very good director, or something, something like that. You think immediately you think, oh well, that was crap. But dude, there's this whole rabbit hole. If you listen a little bit, it's like, I don't want to say it's totally not his fault, but it's pretty not not his fault. It's pretty not his fault. So the studio came up to him and was like, yeah, we want to do the Hobbit movies, and he's like, that's great, I'm super happy to produce them and have a helping hand producing and doing all this stuff, and that's great, we're happy to do that. And so went through directors, they settled on Guillermo del Toro, which I think would have been wild. I think that would have been a freaking because The Hobbit, if you guys have read it, The Hobbit is a lot more, it's more fantastical than Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings that's a lot more subdued, a lot more, heavier.
Yeah, it's
more
the
adult.
original trilogy and then the prequels. The prequels are kind of wild and fantastical and very whimsical.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Because he wrote it as a bedtime story for his kids. That's why he wrote The Hobbit. So it is a little more fantastical. And I think pairing that with a Del Toro aesthetic, oh, dude, I think that would have been so wild. Oh, I think that would have been wild. I'm really bummed that didn't happen. But blah blah blah. Right, again, rights got in the way.
She's my professional troll.
That's a good one. Rights got in the way, and it got, so they spent millions of dollars on pre-production, right? So because these are the Hobbit films, these are going to be huge. So they spent millions and millions on pre-production. We're getting into it. All of the art style and everything that Del Toro liked, and then production gets delayed because of rights issues. And he's like, it's fine, but I really want to do this project. It's fine. So they're like, okay. So they keep doing things, keep doing pre-production. Production gets delayed again because of rights. And Del Toro's like, okay, that's fine. Like, it's fine, but we gotta stop. We gotta like do this soon. And they're like, for sure, we'll get it wrapped up. And so they keep investing money in pre-production. And they're like, yeah, there's gonna be one more delay. And Del Toro's like,
I'm out.
I can't. Like, I can't do this, guys.
Screw you guys. I'm going out.
So Del Toro bails on the project, which I don't blame him. It's crazy how he waited a really long time.
I mean, what kind of time frame are we talking about here? Is this like years?
It was like a yearish. It was like a yearish, something like that, over a year, something like that. It was something like in that industry, like to wait that long was wild. He said no to a lot of other projects, and finally he bailed on it. It's like, you guys got to get your shit figured out. Bailed on it, he bails, and then the studio gets it figured out. They're like, like, okay, we're ready to start production.
Sorry.
Like, great, but they don't have a director now. And they're like, hi, Mr. Jackson.
Hey, Pete.
Hey, Pete. And Peter's like, no. I'm not. I'm not directing those films. Particularly now, because everything is set up for a Guillermo del Toro film.
Yeah.
Like, all of the artwork, all the style, it's all his film. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. And so he set off. So that studio set off to find another director. And I don't know the whys, but people were not jumping on it. People were like, I'm not doing that, not touching that. It was a bunch of no's. And after a bunch of no's, they begged him to do it. And he was like, okay. Yeah. I think I think they had like announced like some of the dates already. And they're like, dude, we need someone to do this.
Yeah.
And so he's like, fuck yeah, fine. So he jumps in, like, to put in perspective, his Lord of the Rings films. The first one came out in 2001. They were in pre-production for those films in 1999.
Yeah.
Like, that's the amount of like pre-production planning that went into those films, and you can tell.
Yeah.
Versus The Hobbit, he jumped in, and I think they started filming like that month.
Jesus.
You know, like within like a few weeks they started doing it. So they were like whipping new designs around, going back to sort of a Peter Jackson aesthetic, changing all the designs, changing the script. And it was going to be 2 movies. They were okay. We're going to do 2 movies, changing the design around, jumps into directing. And then they're like rewriting the script as they're filming. There's days there. He's saying there was days where he didn't have, like, he literally didn't have a script. They were just like, what are we what are we shooting today, boss? And he's like, let's get you up on that mountain over there.
Sure.
And yeah, dude, like, the dude is insane, man. And so someone just commented. So he was so stressed out about this that he ended up getting an ulcer, and that ulcer perforated. He ended up in the hospital. And this is that business, where like the studio's like, dude, oh my gosh, I hope you're okay. Also, we need to keep this going. So they moved oh my god, dude, they moved the monitors, all of the filming monitors, into the hospital room next to his hospital bed. So he's directing the films from his hospital bed. Yeah, it's just like so in that sense, when you have like the whole story, my brain is like, okay, frankly, I'm kind of impressed they turned out half as good as they did. For like not. Oh, and then somewhere in there, the studio was like, by the way, yeah, we're gonna need let's do 3 films. I think we're gonna turn this into 3 movies. And also we're gonna need a love triangle. We're gonna need a love triangle in there. Yep. So yeah, incredible. that was a beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, we'll hit the super chat really quick. Jester
Cool.
45, thank you very much. Thank you. Arlena says, "Is this the brother that forged helmets? You know which thank you I want. Oh, which thank you want? I got you. Destroy the younglings. All right, we'll do that, and then we'll talk about this real quick.
Thank you.
Gotta slay the younglings. Yes, this is the brother that's doing the helmets. You're doing pewter helmets, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that, because you actually have one that's Lord of the Rings, and one of the guys in here bought your Sauron, actually. King's here bought one of your Sauron helmets.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Gosh, how did that start? I saw someone was 3D printing 3D printing helmets on Etsy out of just the plastic, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
It could be better.
But it could be better. It could be better. And I had started working with metal and pewter. Pewter is such a good, if you have any interest in like casting, metalworking, things like that.
Mhm.
Pewter is the best beginners metal. It's super user friendly.
It's like lead, but not
Basically,
as
yeah.
dangerous.
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, they take the lead out of it. And I mean, they used to put lead in it. That's why a lot of the lead pewter, if you get cups or silverware or whatever, a lot of times it'll say lead free.
Yeah.
Because they used to have lead in it because it's such similar characteristics. Very low as far as metals go. It's a lower melting point.
Yeah.
Pretty malleable. Yeah, super user friendly. And so I started working with that before I started getting into like brass and copper and stuff, and was like, oh man, like I saw it. So I saw that helmet, and I was like, this is cool. It'd be cooler, and cast them in pewter, in silicone. Cast them in a high temperature silicone, which casting in silicone is a whole nother art form.
Yeah.
That's like getting good molds
That's
out of
tough,
silicone.
man.
Yeah, that's like, oh, I'm gonna cast it out of metal. It's like, cool. Learn to work with silicone.
Yeah.
Learn to work with silicone first. Get good at it. It's again super. It's such a cool time to be alive. Everything is everywhere. Like you have if you want to, do you want to do something? Go do it. That's literally the time we live in right now. I was like, that sounds cool. I want to do that. They have high temperature silicone on Amazon. They have it in store. Freaking Hobby Lobby probably. Like this, just you can do whatever you want now, and it's cool. So I messed around with silicone, made some molds, and those helmets are up and going now. Pretty
If you
cool.
can,
Oh, dude, this guy. Sorry.
If you can, I will. Is the store still up? The Etsy
Yep.
store. Okay, all right.
Yep.
I'll try to grab the link and drop it in the chat if anybody wants. He's got a
Cool.
Sauron and a Stormtrooper right now.
Yeah, one to represent each fandom.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the Operation
this
Memorial helmet.
Yeah. A little war memorial. This businessman, this Japanese businessman, outside of Tokyo, bought 8 of them, and he's like, I'm gonna sell these in my shop in Tokyo.
Damn.
Like,
you bought 8?
Yeah.
That's sick. So yeah, your creations
he's like, one of them is
around in Japan.
Yeah, he's like, one of them is in my collection, and 3 of them have already sold out. And
damn, dude.
He's getting a restock. He just put another order in. I'm like,
man, that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. So we got a little off topic there. So I guess kind of finishing up on the Hobbit, because for me, this is one of those things. I don't know why the Hobbit didn't resonate for me. The movies just didn't work for me. And we've never actually sat down and talked about, like, do you like them? Do you like the Hobbit movies?
Right.
Right.
I do.
Spill the beans.
Right. It's hard because I feel because I sympathize greatly with Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
That was a terrible situation to try to make films in. It was like you didn't get any pre-production time. Your pre-production time is during production time. You had a serious health issue while filming. And then on top of that, maybe maybe worst of all, you had savage studio involvement on those, right? Whereas I'd say one of the coolest, most interesting ways I'd heard the Lord of the Rings trilogy put was basically it was the biggest, most expensive indie film of all time.
Yeah,
and that's exactly how I see that. That's
very
exactly
little
how I see that.
studio involvement.
That nobody knew yet really like what the hell New Zealand was. It was like, oh yeah, it's that little country off, isn't it like by Australia or something? Like no one no one knew what New Zealand was. No one knew who Peter Jackson was. Lord of the Rings hadn't really been touched in a long time. And so they basically, they'd send a couple people out, to be the speakers for New Line.
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers, but basically they left him alone. There were some trade-offs here and there, but basically like they got to make the movies that they wanted, and it was just a giant indie film. Whereas now that those films come out, they win more Oscars than God, Academy Awards than God. There's that whisper of, hey, we want to do that again. Let's make some Hobbit movies.
Money.
Now So it's like, okay, hey, we'll give you, we'll fund your film this much money, but we need to see this in there. Okay, we'll fund the movie, but we need to see this in there. And so the studios are just
check
like,
them boxes, buddy.
hey, they're checking boxes, they're changing lore, they're bloating scenes and adding stuff that was not in the books. Not only is it like not in the books, but like it doesn't further the story. So that's I feel like it's almost should be in a film class. Like if you're doing a film class, like if you want to, like what does too much studio involvement look like? What does studio over involvement look like? Show them the Hobbit films. Like that's what it looks like. It's just bloated, just super bloated. And it shouldn't have been 3 films. I mean, that's easy. I think that was at most 2.
Yeah.
Maybe one long one. They diverted very much from what you hear. Whereas something you hear like Peter Jackson and the scriptwriters talk about like incessantly for Lord of the Rings is how do we make, you have a huge cast, right? You have like nine main ones and then a bunch of other ones. What their theme was, how do we make it Frodo-centric? Even though there's all these other storylines, how do we make it Frodo-centric, right? Because otherwise there's just too much. There's too much. Like you can't put everything in these films.
Bilbo.
Right. So you literally have a book called The Hobbit. Mm-hmm. No, I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. Okay. Sorry. For Lord of the Rings, for 3 films, right? You have a book this freaking big. They're like, okay, well, how do we focus on the heart of the story? What's our tactic for like what's our through line? Their tag was Frodo-centric, right? And that's how they sort of made the decisions to don't put this in from the book, keep this in the book. And they did that, and they did it wonderfully. So now you have what is possibly an even easier job, because the next book is literally called The Hobbit, or the next project is called The Hobbit. It's called The Hobbit. Maybe focus on The Hobbit. Yeah. But instead they go off in these tangents. Like it feels like for 2 films, it's almost about everyone else except for him. Like if you did a little film about the changes. Actually, my Megan is my wife is teacher. She's a teacher. She's an English teacher, and she's doing The Hobbit right now in one of her classes. And like one of the things you go over is like, how is this character changed from the beginning to the end of the story? Yeah. And if they just focused on that for those films of like how is this dude who like all the comforts of home, no reason to leave, like literally 0 reason to leave. He's super comfy and he leaves, goes through all these hardships. Why? How did he change? Why did he do that? What happened because he did that? Like that would have been, make it a character film.
What if we had an elf and a dwarf together?
Oh my God.
Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
And they did.
Yeah.
They didn't. They focused on a lot of other stuff. And so no, I'm not a fan of the films. There is that. Someone did that cut. They call it like the book cut, where there's this guy. I think I saw it on like Reddit or something. This guy basically cuts out all of the scenes from those books from the movies that aren't in the books. And he cuts it down to like probably what it should have been. He cuts it down to like 3.5 hour film.
Yeah.
And there's no Tariel, there's no Legolas, there's no lot. There's not. It's a lot less. Yeah. And it's better. It's a lot better. It's
This is just you have to read this in like a South Park voice. Y'all saw an elf and a man. Now get ready for the newest love story you've never wanted.
It was pathetic. It was so pathetic. It made you wonder: is this actually made by the same? Like, are we getting punked? Is this the same team? Because it wasn't just Peter Jackson. It was like the same script writers, the same, people working on the film. It was like a same team, the same core team. You're like, this can't be the same people. But it goes to show, like, the conditions have a lot to do with the film. So if you spend 2 years in pre-production, year and a half in pre-production to get the poop in a group, your stuff planned out, you're gonna have a much tighter, more emotionally fulfilling film than like you're going out on the day. Like, what are we filming today, boss? Oh,
God. There's something about some barrels in a river. Fuck it, let's do that.
Yeah. So that's all. And of course then there was Rings of Power, which was there were certain markers along the way that were little hints of like, even though these people were saying things like, anytime we had a question, we went back to the books, right back to the book. Always the book. Right. So as a nerd, that's what you want to hear. You're like, okay, that's good. I like that. They hired some good people. Tom Shippey hired a good Tolkien scholar. So they, sort of lip service wise, they're hiring some good people, and you're like, this is good. But then there's that sort of dissonance. This sort of dissonance starts to come to fruition of like, well, they're saying these things, but I'm starting to see these other things.
I just don't believe you.
Yeah, and I really wanted to be, and I was for a while. I really was on like what a lot of people in the Tolkien fandom called it for sure, dude. As soon as they fired Tom Shippey, I was like, not to mention whoever just did that comment, they fired Tom Shippey and his replacement, because obviously you need a Tolkien scholar on the film, obviously on the show. Tom Shippey's replacement was the head of diversity, equity, inclusion at Glasgow University. You're like, okay.
Shit.
I was like, so I was trying to say what a lot of the Tolkien nerds who were trying to be optimist for a while, we would call it cautious optimism. I'm cautiously optimistic. There was
a lot of goodwill. There was a lot of goodwill from the fan base.
I felt like I was very, very proud of that community for a while, because I think they had a very long leash for a while until they really kind of started showing their colors. But I wanted to be cautiously optimistic, and now, to go full circle with these new films coming back out, it's hard to do the cautiously optimistic thing again.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, but I did that already, and yeah. So I don't know.
Excited. I mean, the bottom line is, it's not Amazon, so that's good. That's a start.
Yeah.
PJ being involved is always good, but you do have to wonder. You have to sit back and you have to wonder, how far is the studio going to go to make sure that they get what they want out of these movies? Yeah. I think having, in some bizarre, right, all right. okay, follow me on this one. Okay.
I think it's maybe in some bizarre way, right? Maybe Amazon had to walk so New Line could run, right? So like maybe maybe Amazon, maybe, so this is where we were talking about this the other day, like maybe competition will be the best thing that you could ask for, right? So Amazon, gives all of the lip service in the world to like how accurate they're going to be, how true to the source they're going to be, how good it's going to be. Show comes out, at least critically it was a failure. People did not like that show. Like I'm sure it made some money, but critically, no one's gonna that's not gonna live in the halls of filmmaking.
You don't like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Galadriel?
Yeah, well, yeah. It was very 2022.
Northern Army.
Yeah, the Northern Armies. I don't know which armies those were, but sure. Oh, sure. So Amazon does that. Just gets pretty well made fun of. I think they got horribly made fun of, and it's awesome to see. Like you don't get to take advantage of people's fandoms like that. I was super proud. I don't. It's just like the Star Wars thing. I don't want people to get attack or get shitty to the actors or anything, because dude, they're actors. Like they're you got a cool job. Of course, I'm going to say yes to that. It's really the studios, the big ugly corporate part that. It's big and ugly, but also you need it if you want to produce those things that you like. So they do that. I think they fall on their face, sort of socially, critically. They fall on their face. Now WB, New Line, at least they have something now. They have a thing like, okay, at least we know
what not to do.
Don't do that. Don't do that. And my hope is that they are ruthlessly capitalist in their intentions, obviously alongside of being the thing about being ruthlessly capitalist is you inevitably take in what the people want, because if the people want something true to the books, as we showed with the Amazon Prime thing, they're going to love it and they're going to buy it and they're going to watch it again and again and again and again, and that means money. That means money for the studio. So if the studio's like, hey, we want money, make a damn good product then make something awesome, and people will see it. Like, I'll watch it. If you got cool things from it, I'll buy it. I'll watch it again and again. I'll recommend it to other people.
Yeah.
No one is doing that with the Rings of Power. That's just not
Star Wars.
Right. Right.
So it's such an echo chamber in here. It's disgusting.
Such an echo. So toxic.
But so you're right. I mean, that's the bottom line is, more than ever right now, people are craving those original stories being told in a way that's respectful to where it came from. And a lot of the times the problem is those stories are problematic for studios. You know what I mean? They don't check enough boxes. And so they're like, well, we're going to update this for a modern audience. And people are like, no, don't do that. We like the old one. That's why we liked it. That's why it's famous. That's why everybody knows what it is. Yeah.
Again, tough time for creativity and for right. So I think one of the reasons, right, all these old stories, whether it's old as in Lord of the Rings, like 1960s old, or 20th century, or old as in 1,000 years ago, something like a Beowulf or the Grimm's brothers, the Grimm's fairy tales, or anything like that. Dude, they're stories. They're good stories, often thought of as like the Grimm's one, at least thought of as children's stories, fairy tales, things like that. But okay, so I've been sort of meditating on this recently. I think the problem that we're running into is the reason those stories last for so long is because basically they are moral teaching devices. Yeah. They have They have lessons. Like they have lessons inside of those stories, and they're often they are teaching morals. Sometimes they teach, behavior, but it's often moral behavior is what those things are teaching. That is 100% what is in Lord of the Rings. That is 100% of what is all of the Grimm fairy tales. A lot of these old stories were moral teachings, and we're in this. Oh, buddy, we are in this time where it feels like anything anything from there's a Star Wars line. Anything from the past,
Just let it die.
Just gotta let
Kill
it
if you
die.
have to.
Kill it, man. Anything from the past is you got to scour it. Is it toxic? Is it racist? Is it phobic? Is it whatever?
Yeah.
We are. I think we are in this. I've heard it put as sort of postmodern. One of the aspects of postmodernism is deconstructing. Is you deconstruct everything, right? So you deconstruct everything. Everything needs to be deconstructed. We're not even allowed to have like bad guys anymore. We don't even have villains anymore. Drinker did a good video on what happened to our villains or something like that. And it was like every villain from a story now gets to have a sympathetic, empathetic movie. Arc. Yeah, where it's like, well, yeah, maybe they look like the bad guy, but actually it's because whatever, a toxic male did this to them, or
there was they made Sauron. There was a lot of that going on with Sauron. They're like, oh, we can fix him. Sauron's daddy.
Yeah,
No, please.
And so it's like, okay, I mean, on Summit, it's hard, right? Because you want both worlds. On one end, yeah, of course, like it's interesting to hear like the bad guys' side of things.
Yeah.
Like on the other end, I don't want to empathize with the bad guy all the times. I don't care. Like what they're doing is like, I want them to be misguided, or I want them to do something that is. And so Tolkien was what I liked about Tolkien was he's not like, there are good people and there are bad people. Like that is not him at all. But he does believe in there is good and there is bad and there is evil.
Yeah.
He's in the camp of like even the best person has the capacity for evil, and even the most evil person has a capacity for good. And that's what makes his characters interesting. Like freaking pick a character, dude. Like like
people want to be their own god, and human beings make shitty gods. Yeah, there's a way to do it. Like sympathizing with Sauron in Rings of Power, probably not the direction I would have gone with. But when you look at movies like The Joker that came out recently, there's a way to do this where you kind of sympathize with the villain because you see why he's bad, and you're like, okay, that makes sense why he's bad. I don't want to know, like, I don't want to be like, well, he's actually good. This is why he's good. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Maybe that's the distinction. Is like, no, I'm okay with seeing why he's bad.
Yeah.
But they don't stop there. What they keep doing is this is why actually he's good.
Yeah.
Or she, whatever. It's like, oh no, you actually thought he was bad, but actually they were taken advantage of, and so actually they're actually not bad. We just thought he was bad. And that's the difference. Like, so that was a good example. The Joker was good because it's like no one at the end of that film was like, this is actually, he's a good person.
Yeah.
It was like, that's why he is what he is. That's cool. I'm totally up for those. That's great. And you could do that with Sauron. Like Sauron was not, again, like that cookie cutter, just born evil, always evil.
I'm a bad man from the Southlands.
Yeah. Like all of Tolkien's bad guys have, there is reason behind it, right? So like a lot of it is sort of old world, sort of biblical first. What do you call it?
Can't have that.
It's very like Old Testament-y, where there was sort of to think of like New Testament God is like New Testament God is like, I love you and I have always loved you. You can do no wrong in my eyes. Or like
Don't
Old
forget
Testament
about that
God
other stuff.
right. Where like Old Testament God is like, I will kill you. I will kill you.
Watching your ass right now.
I will kill you. Like Old Testament God is scary, dude. Dude is scary.
Did you just pull your dick out right now? Because we can go into hell, bro.
Like, so okay, that's a whole nother fun talk. But Sauron was, so he strayed from sort of Eru. God, he strayed from God's he strayed from the path, right? It was like he wanted to basically be his own god. He wanted to create. He wanted to create his. He loved order. This is probably the scariest thing I think about him was he started off good. Started off as a good dude. He's like basically what we would call an angel, like an angelic spirit. Started off good, but was obsessed with order and harmony. Like every like it's kind of sounds scarily similar to some of the people today. It's like everything needs to be in order. Everything needs a label. Everything has to have a label. Everything has to have a box. And if you're outside of that box, this is upsetting to me. Like everything needs to be in its place. And and he just kept walking down that road. And to the point where look, it's everything needs to be the way I see it, or you opt out. Like, so that's cool. Like if you wanted to do like that kind of story, it's like no one's gonna say, oh, see, he was a good guy all along. But it's more along the lines of I understand why he is
what he's doing,
the way he is. Like that could be super interesting.
On that a little bit, because you did. So I mean, you kind of gave me a rundown on like what the deal with Sauron was, but I think there are probably some people in the chat too that like to hear, because as it's put as Rings of Power, basically you've got a guy from the Southlands, and then we just find out like, hey, by the way, I'm the bad guy, and he puts some water in a volcano, and Mordor is born. Like, wait, what? So what happened?
Just brutal. They took one of the coolest storylines in Tolkien. Like, it's so the deception of Numenor and the island of Numenor is so cool. That it's a not something you can really cover like in a in a little video chat. But to give a try to do a quick recap. So blah blah blah. First stage, people know Lord of the Rings. That's the third age of the world. So 2 ages ago in the first age, basically what we would call like a Lucifer. God says, I'm going to have creation. God wants to make creation. So he creates a bunch of sub creators, sub gods, and they call them the Valar. And this is the coolest. If you like creation stories, I remember studying I don't know if you guys did that in school, but in little school, we did a bunch of different cultures' creation stories about how the Earth was created. And I remember thinking those were everyone had such interesting creation stories, like African ones, Greek ones, super interesting. So Tolkien's creation story was, especially as a music nerd, I thought it was cool. Tolkien's creation story was to bring existence into existence. He creates these sub-gods called the Valar, and the chapter is called Ainulindale, and they sing. So God starts singing. He starts singing, and through this singing, all of these sub-gods start singing with him, and through the harmonies of their notes, through their chords, existence starts to come into creation. So like the earth comes into creation through their singing. The mountains, the valleys, all of creation, stars, all of creation starts coming to being through their singing. But there's this one voice that's like, eh. and he's like, I want to do that. Yeah, that's pretty, but I want to do something my own. And God sort of like, shh,
quiet,
join the chorus. Like you are doing something, but it's you're doing it through me, and you're doing it with everyone else. And so it gets harmonious again, and then there's that voice again, dissonance, just this dissonance.
Yeah.
And this god, this sub-god, it's called Melkor, basically keeps bringing in dissonance to God's harmony. And he does it like 3 times, and God finally basically stops and says, very, very Old Testament wise, is like, look, like I know you're trying to do your own thing, to make your own dissonance, to make your own music, but like I hate to disappoint you, nothing you do, no music you make is not already part of the symphony that I have planned.
Right.
So as much as you think you're doing your own thing, none of it is truly your own. It's already part of the symphony that I've planned. Nothing you can create is outside of the symphony that I've planned. That pisses him off fucking wildly. It's like, so he bounces. So he leaves. He bounces, goes to what we call now, goes to Middle Earth. Blah blah blah. Very long story short. The first age happens. His name turns from Melkor, his sort of God-given name, into Morgoth. That's the first Dark Lord, right? And he's off. He's like basically the closest thing you could get to like genuinely evil, even though there is story behind it. It's like, no, this dude like just rebelled from all that is God. If all that is good is God, he's like, then I'm out. I don't want any of it. And God created, his name is Eru in this universe, Ilúvatar. God creates the elves, and just it pisses Morgoth. Morgoth is like, well, I want to create something. And God's like, you like anything you create through me. You can't create anything on your own. And which again, of course, pisses him off. So he takes basically there's a few different creation stories for elves, or for orcs, sorry. So he takes the one that most people use is he takes orcs and twists. This was that beautiful comment that was spammed all over Rings of Power.
Yeah.
You know, evil cannot create; it can only
corrupt.
Corrupt. So Morgoth corrupts the elves into orcs, and basically ruins through his power, sort of ruins the very earth, because he was one of the voices of these sub-gods that created the earth. He basically put this corruption, they call this sort of tainted energy into the earth, that the elves were created from the earth, from the material of the earth. And so as long as the elves are in Middle Earth, they feel this corruption. There's like this off, something is just a little off, and that's why there is this desire to go back to what they call Valinor, Aman, the Undying Lands, which is basically it's the way the Earth was supposed to be. It is like this uncorrupted land where they can feel, where they're fully at peace. And blah blah blah. Long story longer. Sauron is his lieutenant. Sauron ends up being his lieutenant in the first stage. The gods help the elves overthrow Morgoth. Really cool stories, really, really awesome stories in the first and in the second age. He gets kicked out. Sauron ends up taking his place, right? So to do quick sum up, I would say let's go quick sum up. Let's say they fight. Total pain in the Númenóreans side. So the Númenóreans basically turn into Rome. Like what we think of as ancient Rome, that was basically Númenor. Just like this savage superpower, absolutely huge. This is one of the reasons why Lord of the Rings feels like it just feels old. Like even watching the films, reading the books and watching the films, it feels old and they did such a beautiful job in the films of they're always walking past ruins.
Yeah, these giant statues, like all this different.
Yeah. There's always ruins of stuff, and it would feel. I always thought it must feel like walking around in like the 6th century, maybe, or the 7th century. So Rome, the western half of the Roman Empire, fell in the 5th century, right? The biggest empire the world has ever seen. Maybe next to the Mongols. I can't remember. Mongol Empire was pretty big, but Rome is everywhere. Their architecture was everywhere. They had aqueducts, they had buildings, and when the western half of the Roman Empire fell, it must have felt so weird. The quality of life went boom.
Yeah.
People used to have running water, and roads and infrastructure, and I imagine it would feel something like that. You're walking past all these things that don't work anymore, and it's all overgrown and crumbling, and that's what Middle Earth is in the Third Age. You're in this sort of basically what would be almost like, for someone like Elrond, it would basically be like a post-apocalyptic world. It's like Elrond got to see the splendor of the world. He got to see what it was like in its prime, and now basically the Third Age is like just falling apart. Like his people are taking off. They're getting out of here. That's how I imagine what it would be like, because Numenor built almost anything you can think of. Minas Tirith, Helm's Deep, the Hornburg, Weathertop, all this infrastructure was built by the Numenorians. They were everywhere, constantly fighting with Sauron, trying to get footholds in different parts of the map, which is why they were everywhere. Finally, blah blah blah. Numenorians try to confront, after numerous times, Numenorians confront Sauron, right? They're like, hey, we're gonna take our army, we're gonna fuck him up. And Sauron's like, yeah, they'd like to see you try. So
do it, bitch, I dare you.
Fucking do it, bro, do it. So the Numenorians take their army, they walk up to Barad-dûr, they walk up to his fortress of Barad-dûr, and this Numenorian army is so vast that Sauron is like,
Oh, shit.
oh god, I may have made a miscalculation. So he straight up surrenders. He's like, truly, there is no power in this world as great as yours. I surrender. They take him back to Numenor, to the island of Numenor, and imprison him. He is so crafty, so cunning, so deceptive. In the space of 1 year, and under 1 year, he goes from a prison cell to the counselor of the king, like his right-hand man.
So that's his superpower, is that deception.
That's his superpower. Why? Yeah. And he found that much easier another story for another time, easier to deceive men than it was elves for a whole host of super interesting reasons, which is fun. But basically convinces this king of Numenor, who was not one of the amazing ones, like wasn't a great guy, who's kind of proud to start with, and the tensions between elves and men were already high due to basically men being jealous of elves, because why did God give them immortality? Why do they get to live forever, and like I have to see my loved ones die?
Yeah.
Like what the hell kind of God is that? Meanwhile, the elves are like, dude, like you don't get it. Like it's not all that's cracked up to be. Like it's not like imagine seeing the people you love. The elves talk about a world weariness, right? They're like you don't understand. Like we make friends with you guys. It's like befriending a like a fruit fly or something, or almost like a dog, you know, like when you get a dog and you make friends with them, they feel like to the dog, you're basically immortal. Like you're there from the time they are born to the time they die, and you've changed a little bit, but not that much.
Yeah.
That's how I've always saw that relationship between men and elves was the men, the humans are there for a second of time and then they're gone. And that weighs on you. That gets tiring of seeing death come and death come and death go and death come and life go. And you get this world weariness. And that's another reason why they often want to leave and go back to Valinor. It's just to get away from that for a bit.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah. And so real quick, the Valinor says, men, you are allowed to live on this island of Numenor. You are allowed to sail east to Middle Earth all you want. You are not allowed to sail west outside of the site of your island of Numenor. That's literally the only.
Like a fucking challenge, bro.
Right? It's the only rule. It's the only rule you can't break. And for hundreds, thousands of years, it's like fine, that's no problem. Middle Earth was huge. Let's go check it out. But then you get this king. Relationships start souring. Why can't we go to Valinor? Why can't we go to the Undying Lands? And then you have Sauron in this particular king's ear saying, like, dude, you deserve it, babe.
I love this for you. I love this for you.
Sauron is like, for real, dude. Like the elves are making fun of you. Yeah, they're making fun of you, man. Like you're being a chump. And so he breaks it. So this king, this last king of not the last king, but this before it sank anyway, that king broke what they call the ban of the Valar. He sailed with his entire fleet west to the shores of Valinor. And Old Testament God was like, yoink!
Fucking told you, man.
and that's where the island of Numenor sinks down. You have this small group of people called the Faithful, who are like, yeah, I'm not taking part in this.
Yeah.
We're like, they're sailing that way, then we're going that way. In that group of the Faithful was Elendil, his two sons, Isildur and Anarion. They
And don't
found
forget his daughter.
and his daughter, and Amazon original. And so they found the kingdom of Gondor in the south, Arnor in the north, and that's where we get all this awesome Third Age stuff. So in that ruin of Numenor, very much due to Sauron whispering in the king's ear, like, do it. Stop it. He basically gets his body gets destroyed. His spirit endures, and he sort of makes his way back over to Middle Earth, slowly takes shape off in the east of Middle Earth. That's a summary, and that basically enters Third Age. I think you asked me a question.
No,
Before
I was enjoying the shit out of
that to explain something. I don't remember what the original question was, but that's how you end up with Sauron in the Third Age taking shape in the east, and people in the west. Yeah.
So in that, I guess that's the question. There would be, I guess, what I was kind of looking at is, after the destruction of Numenor, this is where kind of they're trying to talk about this in Rings of Power. Like, so what really happens with Sauron there? So does he just like spirit goes into Mordor and just chills and coalesces, or what?
That was it. So he, the God, man, they missed the cool, like some of the coolest stuff. So the temptation and the nice. And the deception of elves and men with these Rings of Power, right? So before the fall of Numenor, Sauron was able to. They call it take shape. So he takes this fair form. He takes a fair form called Anatar, and Anatar means the Lord of Gifts, which they like kind of referenced in Ring of Power. It was so stupid. Talk about a missed opportunity. What a jackass. So he presents this super fair form, and says, "Hey guys, I can teach you ringcraft. I know you guys are interested in ringcraft and the crafting of things, and I have knowledge of the elves. I have knowledge of the gods, and you get
You're
two
not gonna
camps.
believe this, but this is actually used to be my job. I do this.
And so you get." Some elves who were like, Celebrimbor, right, who has Feanor. There was this elf named Feanor in the First Age who was like, think of him as the greatest craftsman to ever, like a savant,
Right.
like gifted by God. This guy is the greatest could make anything and made the most beautiful things there were. The two trees in Valinor, before there was the sun and moon, there was these two trees. And that's what gave light to the world. This guy captured light from these two trees and these crystals. He called them Silmarils, and that's where the Silmarillion comes from. It's all of the good God, the war and death that came from these Silmarils.
Yeah.
The First Age is friggin' rough, man. So Celebrimbor is like, really?
Rings, you say?
Rings, you say? And he has this Feanorian blood in him. He's one of his descendants, and he's like, teach me everything.
Yeah.
And then there's other elves who are like, dude, like this dude showed up saying like, I can fix all your problems. and they're like, don't trust him, man. This dude is a snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
And they diverted, and he does the same thing with men. He goes to men and is like, I can teach you ringcraft, and look at these magic rings. And his ploy with the elf. So, okay. Yeah. Long story short, he he makes these rings. He helps with Celebrimbor. He helps make these rings. 9 of them, and this is a part everyone knows. 9 of them for men, 3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarf lords. So he makes the 9 for men and the 7 for the dwarf lords. Hands those out while the 3 for the elves are being made. He takes off. He takes off for a minute. I don't remember what he was doing, but he F's off for a minute. And so technically the 3 elven rings did not have that corruption of Sauron in them. The way that he tempted them into making them was like, hey, look, this world around you is tainted, it's falling apart, it's corrupted because of that original corruption of Morgoth in the first age. Mm-hmm. If you use these rings, this is what Celebrimbor did anyway when he made the rings, was these are they are rings to help endure. That's how you end up with places like Lothlorien,
right?
Which, even though the world is sort of like is the post-apocalyptic world to the elves, Lothlorien is still the splendor, the Malorn trees. It's still the splendor of what was left over anyway of the first age. You have this
right,
this little pocket of uncorrupted land, but it's because that one elven ring of power is basically using to prop everything up, basically.
Yeah.
And same with so Galadriel has one, Elrond has one in Rivendell. It helps preserve. It's a power of preservation. He ends up basically with the Library of Alexandria in Rivendell. It's all the records of the world he keeps are kept in Elrond's famous library. And so the 3 elven rings are good. They're because they weren't made by Sauron with Sauron. They were made from an elf for other elves to help preserve their world. So he F's off, forges in secret his one master ring to control all of those rings. But as soon as he puts the ring on, the elves know immediately, like they've been had.
Oh,
shit's up. Yeah. And that's how the men get ruined. The men, not necessarily kings of men, by the way, we don't actually know that, but some of them were kings of men. They were much more, so they totally lost that. They had such a cool thing to do on that show. And they turned it into
power.
It's literally called the Rings of Power, and you turned it into this like oh my gosh, dude, they like crammed that little bit of ring, that bit of lore of ring making into like the last episode. It's like 40 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes.
It's
pathetic,
basically the whole show is essentially basically like the quest of Galadriel to find Sauron. And then at the end, Sauron's like, "Oh, we're gonna make the rings," and then he's like, "Oh, fucking Mount Doom!" Roll credits. What the fuck?
Oh, they missed out. So they had such a cool opportunity for storytelling, and they crammed that bit into like 40 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes. What a letdown!
About right. We've got a real issue right now with shows being not properly named. That show should have just been called like Galadriel's Adventures, not The Rings of Power.
Yeah, like the wild and wacky adventures of Captain Galadriel. What a bummer. Yeah. So that's man. Download it on you guys. There's some ring lore for you guys.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So all that, that kind of encompasses why, this universe is so complete. It's so complete, literally from the story of creation up until, where we're at now, essentially starting in the 4th age is kind of the end of it all, I guess you would say. But there's so much cool stuff that happens in between, and one of those things that they're doing is the animated film. It's going to be The War of the Rohirrim, I think it's called, right?
Yeah.
What do you so I know you're really excited about it, I think, because there's a lot of Helm Hammerhand lore in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Keep downloading. What do you got on?
Some early.
This ties into Lord of the Rings too, because Helm's Deep and all that. There's some connections there, right?
Yeah. So that again, I don't know a ton about. They haven't released a ton of information about it yet, but what they've said is it's going to be, early Rohan, which was a land given to these men of the plains that had helped Numenor Gondor. Sorry, that had helped Gondor. Numenor. Yeah, it was given to these men, and yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't. Dude, I couldn't stay for the whole thing. I couldn't do it. Given to them for their help while fighting. So that it's called, original name was Calanarthon, and it ends up turning into Rohan. So War of the Rohirrim, I think, is sort of very, very early Third Age. Mm-hmm. The Hornburg is still there. The Hornburg was a Númenórean structure, so it was called the Hornburg. So I think War of the Rohirrim is gonna hopefully investigate a little bit, illustrate a little bit of who Hammerhand was. Yeah,
because the dude was a fucking brute.
Was a meathead, man. Freaking meathead, like a badass guy. Meathead's not that's not totally accurate. He was. You think of meathead, you think of not always particularly intelligent.
Right. He was just he was a brute.
He's a brute. Brute's a better word. He's a beast. And they have, so the Rohirrim, even in Lord of the Rings, they always have beef with the Hillmen and Easterlings, and there's always territorial disputes, just like our world. It's realism, and so yeah, they're going to hopefully be exploring. If it's Helm Hammerhand, they're inevitably going to do that. Sort of the Cliff Notes version is Cliff Notes version. Army of Hillmen and Easterlings attack Edoras, right? So Edoras Golden Hall, kind of like Theoden, seeing that this is like not necessarily an awesome place to defend.
Yeah,
they beat a hasty retreat to the Hornburg. A lot of this stemmed from King Helm having basically a dispute with another kind of like high-ranking man of Rohan, of Edoras. His name was Freka, and so you think basically the Eorlingas, the Rohirrim, think Anglo-Saxons.
Right.
They were basically, think Beowulf. It's John Howe said that once. It's basically Beowulf with horses added.
Yeah.
These are fair-haired, like just like blonde is the. It's always going to like Sweden or something, like Norway or something. It's like sort of blonde pale people. So you could often tell the men of Rohan was their straw-colored hair. Mm-hmm. So they have this animosity towards these hillmen, and so Freka was always thought to be part hillman because he had quite brown hair. And they're like other, and he had basically the dispute was everyone knew he kind of wanted to be king. Freka really thought that he should be king. Uh-huh. Tries to make a arrangement with King Helm and says, "Hey, they're having a feast. They're having a feast in Meduseld." And Freka says, "Hey, Helm, I think one of your sons should marry my daughter." And Helm is like, you can fucking drop this on me right now, like, and he doesn't react like super well to it, and it gets a little aggressive, and a fight is about to happen, and Helm says, all right, a king does not permit fighting in his halls, but outside men are freer to speak.
Yeah. I'm gonna go fuck you up.
Yeah. And so they stand up. So they go outside, and basically the short funny version is Helm calls Freka fat, and Freka gets pissed off. It's a super epic line though. That classic Tolkien. Another reason why Tolkien just feels so old is because Tolkien is not a writer. Everyone's like, oh, the greatest writer, blah blah blah. Tolkien was not a writer. He was a scholar. He was a language scholar.
Yeah.
He was a professor of Old English. He was a professor of Anglo-Saxon, Old Germanic, some of the Norse language. The dude was fluent in like 8 or 10 like dead languages. And so from a dude that studied, old literature like Beowulf or Sir Gawain in The Green Knight is another really old one. The dude that man had completely internalized some of the old language modes.
Yeah.
And so he puts that in Lord of the Rings, and that's why in his writing, and that's why it often feels so old. So he just has the coolest. He's just, man, the way that he makes his characters speak. So while we might say something like, oh yeah, King Helm calls him fat. He says something like, Helm says something along the lines of like you have grown. Like it's a double entendre, almost Shakespearean, almost like you have grown in size. You have grown since we've last met, Freka, and like not just in your head or something like that. And basically, and so like first of all, you've grown too big for your boots. You do not talk to a king like this.
And you're fucking
also,
fat.
you're fat. And you're fucking fat. So, and I think Freka tries to sling some phrase back at him, and Helm goes bam, and just haymakers him. Absolutely, that's just a wild haymaker straight to the face, and it's just stone dead, knocks him dead.
Jesus.
And Helm's like, shit,
not again.
Shit. And which of course pisses off all of the hillmen, and they make an alliance with the Easterlings. They attack Edoras, Meduseld. The Rohirrim flee to Hornburg, that are easier to defend, this big fortress, and of course that's when Mother Nature comes in, or God. They end up having they called it the Long Winter, which is basically just like an entire season long blizzard. It's like a miniature ice age for like a season, like a brutal winter. So it's right before that weather turns. They're defending the fortress. Like sort of the Easterlings, hillmen are attacking this fortress. His sons die. One of the sons are killed I think in front of Meduseld. One of the sons is killed in front of the doors of the Hornburg, hacked to pieces. I think his last son is killed out on a hunting party.
He loses everything.
He loses it, man. I can only imagine what it's like. Yeah, losing all 3 of his sons. The dude loses a marble. He literally goes nuts. And but it's during this epic, insane long winter, this blizzard of a winter, and so you get these legends, man. These legends of this man, this king who dresses at nighttime all in white. He clothes himself all in white, and he goes out in the middle of the blizzard at nighttime, killing men with his bare hands. He had this belief that if he didn't use a weapon, his belief was if he didn't use a weapon, no weapon would harm him. I don't know where that came from, but yeah. And the other, before anyone would call him a coward, because so you're sneaking out at nighttime like a bitch, sneaking out under the cover of darkness. He would blow his horn. He would blow his horn when it was fully dark and the snow was coming down before he left the Hornburg. He would blow his horn
we hear in Two Towers, right? Yeah.
Horn of Helm, Hammerhand, and that's how you knew. Like if you're camped out in one of the Easterling camps or the Hillmen camps, you're like they were terrified if they heard the horn.
Hear the horn, and then it's just like, "Welcome to the annual purge. Good luck."
Yeah. You would wake up to if you woke up, like your entire camp like strangled in their sleep.
Oh my god.
That's wild. This dude would go on these night raids in snowstorms covered in white and would just slaughter men with his bare hands and then return to the keep. And one night, so he goes out on his hunt and he doesn't come back. and the people are like, what the hell? Because they started believing this legend, like, dude, this dude's not gonna die, but he doesn't come back, and they're like, what the hell? Like, where's Helm? And that day the storm clears, like, it stops snowing, the sun comes out, and the sky's blue. So they sent out parties to go looking for him, and they're looking, and they can't, and they're looking, and finally someone spots like a speck in the distance, and I see something, and they go towards the speck, and they see this man standing fully up with his fists clenched, standing facing the wind coming into his face, frozen solid. The dude died standing up.
Very picture of stoicism. Just fucking died.
Oh my gosh. It's like, okay, well, and then they renamed the keep Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep.
That's where Helm's Deep comes from.
That's so sick, dude.
Dude, you have, like, again, you have such a cool story. Please do
fuck
it.
This
like,
up.
Please do it justice. Like, such a good story. So much good stuff to go in.
I think King said, he said, sorry, X, but Miranda Otto as Eowyn is narrating it. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't like her, dude. I don't like her.
It'll be interesting. I'd say that's it. So that's interesting. That could be an interesting narrative device then, as it's maybe Eowyn telling stories from the past.
That's what I think it would be. It would make sense. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Now she's in Edoras, basically running the joint. Telling stories maybe to her kids or something. Maybe her and Boromir have had kids, and they're in the hall. And Faramir. Sorry, Boromir's dead.
Yeah,
Faramir. And she's telling them the stories of their line of kings.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That could be really cool. Yeah.
I want it.
Yeah, I know. I want that. I want that very much. Yeah. So that's coming out. Was it in a year or two?
Yeah, they said somewhere in the next 12 to 24 months.
Okay. Awesome story, man. It's there's this weird thing about animation. Sometimes it feels like, for some reason, you're allowed to do things in animation that you're not always allowed to do with live action things.
Well, cost is certainly a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I wasn't thinking that way. I guess I was thinking along the lines of like checking boxes and stuff. Like, if you have to make like a corporate approved product, for some reason it feels like it's less of a deal with animation sometimes than it is live action. I don't know why that would be, but it certainly feels like it sometimes. So I'm hoping to have a less 2022 corporate approved take on Tolkien, and just like, no, give me storytelling, man. Give me a good story, and I'm there.
So give us your closing thoughts. Should we have hope? What should we do?
I think so. I think what it comes down to is what is right. Yeah. Okay. Here it is. I think what kind of life do you want to live? I think, what kind of life do you want to live? If you want to live as a pessimist, and be proven right often, then live as a pessimist, and like, you'll probably be right a lot of times. If you want to be a little more hopeful and be wrong sometimes, then you'll be wrong, but you'll be a hopeful person. And I find hopeful people are a lot more, a lot better for me to be around.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to be. That's the person that I want to be. So
that's a fucking good ass closing statement. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Phil, obviously, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope we get to have another conversation like this soon, and it's a happy one. And everybody in the chat, just remember,